review. There are 12 partners involved that span over 5 countries in Europe, including Ireland, Greece, Italy, Finland, and Germany. So today's webinar is titled Fostering Inclusive and Emotionally Intelligent Workplaces. So my name is Tamara and I represent the Irish partners in the project. So today's webinar will be attended by students and business professionals across the globe that are completing our massive open online course, and we hope that you're finding it interesting so far. So today you'll have the opportunity to hear about practice of EDI principles in the workplace from our 2 esteemed speakers. So we have Livia Serrini from Italy. She is a project manager and she has a significant experience leading companies and organizations in addressing cultural challenges that impact people with a strong focus on social sustainability issues. And then we have Kay Canning from Ireland, who's the artistic director and CEO of the Mill Theatre. She has led the organization for 8 years, developed and implemented a new strategy, delivered commercial success and a broad community engagement program. So today's webinar will be broken into sections. The first section will have Livia presenting on the Circumplex model of effect and its role in identifying and categorizing emotions in EDI scenarios. And this is going to be an interactive session. Followed by Kate, who will present on EDI Policy in an arts organization, which will explore EDI and organizational leadership and how by implementing effective strategy, an organization can be led by EDI. So during the talks, your microphones will be switched off, and please turn on your cameras if you'd like to do so. And there will be time for discussions and questions after the 2 presentations. And we'd ask you to put any questions that you have in the chat box. You can put them in during the presentations or after, and then we'll address them after the talks. So thank you for your attention. And now I'm going to hand over to Livia.
Hi everyone, thanks Tamara. I'm Livia Serrini. As said, I'm really glad to be here with you today. Together, we will try to better understand our emotions in order to manage properly EDI, so equity, diversity, and inclusion situation. We are speaking about bias or discrimination that can occur in university or work-related situation indeed. We will do that thanks to the Circumplex model of effect. This model can really help us in increasing our emotional awareness, helping us to recognize and better understand the range of emotion that can arise in every kind of situation. Indeed, this model is really a practical tool that can help us to analyze and reflect on our personal emotion and in challenging situations. Lastly, this model, as we will see, may help us in improve our communication skills. Because thanks to emotional awareness, we can enhance discussion and improve conflict resolution in a better way. So let's start with a small, I promise, theoretical part. Here we can see the model. It is a psychological model that was developed in 1980 by Russell. And it maps different emotions based mainly on 2 key dimensions, that is balance and arousal. Let's deep dive for a moment on these 2 dimensions. Balance, that we can see on our horizontal line, goes from pleasant to unpleasant. This dimension measures the degree to which an emotion is experienced as positive, and it will be pleasant, or negative one, and it will be unpleasant. Emotion like joy, satisfaction, or excitement fall, of course, in the positive on the positive end, whilst emotion like sadness will lie on the negative one. Let's focus on the vertical line of the model, that is the arousal, and goes from the activation to deactivation. It refers to the level of psychological activation or intensity of our emotion. For example, activation or arousal emotion include excitement and anger, whereas the activation arousal emotion include calmness, relaxation, and may also lead to boredom. As we can see from the model, emotions are organized in a circular structure, allowing us to visualize how the different emotions relate to each other, ranging from calm to excitement or sadness to happiness. Let's see how these two-dimension combine to create a wider range of emotion that we can experience in any related situation. Let's just wait a second for thanks a lot. Okay, here we have our correct slide. So we were saying that these two dimensions cross together in order to give us a better map of the emotion that we can feel and experience in different situations, with a specific focus on EDI, so equity, diversity, and inclusion situation. For example, let's focus on the high arousal, so will be the high activation line with a positive valence. In that situation, we will experience happiness or excitement. For example, the excitement that we can feel receiving a long-awaited promotion at work. Moving on, high arousal and negative valence, we can experience hunger or anxiety. For example, the frustration during a heated argument with a colleague. Low arousal, so low intensity of the emotion, but with a positive valence, will let us experience calmness or contentment. For example, the satisfaction while relaxing after having completed a successful project. Lastly, the low arousal, so low valence, low intensity of our psychological emotion, but with a negative valence, leads to sadness and boredom. For example, the one experienced during a slow day at work where tasks feel definitely uninspiring. But now, as Tamara said, this session will be a little bit interactive. So I will kindly ask to take your phone or go on Google from your PC and go on www.menti.com. You can insert then the enter code number that you can see here from the slide, or scan the QR code that we will see shortly here. Great, thanks. And I'm really curious about which emotion do you commonly experience in challenging workplace situations. So you can think about, of course, a situation that you have experienced maybe lately in this context that might be like a EDI-related context. And please let us know like the emotion that you felt, that you have experienced. So remember that you can, scan the code or insert the code from www.menti.com. Okay, here we are. We have some replies. Thanks, guys. Okay, anxiety, alert, frustration. We are speaking about unpleasant, so a negative valence of our emotion with a high psychological response, that is the activation. So it mix between unpleasant and activation. Stress, okay. Stress as a frustration has a high psychological response, unpleasant, of course. We have excitement, tension, okay. Competitiveness, okay. Happiness, that's great. We will see also how being able to better manage our emotion, also understanding them, really can foster, an inclusive environment. Success, overwhelming, okay. Excitement, I saw, that's nice. Excitement will be, of course, has a positive valence. So positive valence and high psychological response in us. So it's that range. Okay. Motivation to better, motivation to be better. Okay. Stress. Okay. So thanks a lot. Okay, there, worry, frustration. Okay. Okay, see, yes, for sure, we have a wide range of emotion that occurs in different situations. So just it's great just to start thinking about the emotion that we felt during EDI-related situation. Okay, I will come back. Great on the speech. Now let's try to understand how a better understand of our emotion can really help us in leading properly EDI-related situation. So we are speaking about bias, microaggression, or discrimination that are often emotional triggers, of course. As we will see also, this emotion can provoke really a wide range of emotional responses, influencing, of course, how we interact with others. We can apply the model and can, and I would say, it can bring us to different benefits. First of all, we will be able much better to map our emotion. For example, let's think when employee experience a negative EDI-related experience, such as discriminatory treatment, his or her emotion can be placed in the Circumplex model. It can help us indeed to interpret different emotional responses, because of course, depending on the situation that we are living, the emotional experience may be very different. Thinking about prejudice, an employee that experience prejudice might feel excluded or devalued, of course. And this might trigger emotions such as sadness, so low activation, and the negative valence, of course, or frustration. So high activation, high psychological response with a negative valence. A positive, like in a positive context of inclusion, employees that might experience such as joy, satisfaction, or calm. So high valence will be high psychological response, positive emotion with low arousal, low psychological response, creating in that way a stimulating environment. Having a clear idea of the intersection of these two dimensions and the emotion that can be triggered in the different situation can help us in prevent and manage critical situation. In that way, we will be able to identify negative emotion that may arise in problematic D&I on EDI situation in advance. For example, if an employee experiences high frustration or anxiety due to discrimination, this signals that the work environment is not inclusive and could lead to episode of burnout and disengagement. And this can be super useful for manager in order to intervene in early stage. As we said, the model and understanding of emotion can help us in promote constructive responses, because we can be more constructive. The model, can help us in recognize and manage emotion, allowing for better responses. For example, after an episode of microaggression, an analysis of arousal and balance can help develop a support plan for the employee, of course, directing their emotion towards greater understanding and resolution rather than frustration. Lastly, a better understanding of our emotion, thanks to the Circumplex model, can really help us in address training and awareness in company. So, in summary, organization, but also us, can better understand and deal with emotion that may arise from situation that we experience in EDI-related context. Now I would ask you to put your shoes on a real case scenario. Here we have Alex, that is a 20 years old marketing specialist that works in an agency of advertising and has recently helped develop a new campaign for a major client. During the brainstorming session, Alec presents innovative idea using digital trends. Basis manager Linda often overlooks his suggestion. She prefers, indeed, input from older team in their 40s or 50, believing that they have more real-world experience. Despite Alex's strong understanding of market dynamics, Linda dismisses his idea as too risky and opts for traditional methods backed to the older employees. So, of course, here we have a clear case of age bias, because even though Alex's ideas are aligned with the market's need, his age became a barrier to the contribution and to the creation of value. The preference for the older employees block in that way innovation and limits the potential of younger talent. So I will ask you again to take your phone or go on your PC on Mentimeter, www.mentimeter.com. You can enter the code or scan the QR code. And I'm asking you, in your opinion, in which quadrant would frustration with bias treatment fall under, compared, of course, to our Circumplex model of effect? So let's try to remember how the two dimensions cross together, creating a different range of emotion. We're speaking about age-biased situation occurred at work. Okay, see a lot of responses. We have 8, 9. Okay, a lot of you are going towards activation and unpleasant. Okay, unpleasant activation. Okay. I will say that, more going on unpleasant. Okay, so for sure, we all agree, I think, that is a negative emotion that is triggered. So will be for sure unpleasant. Thinking about the psychological arousal instead of our model, it will be activation. So will be the crossing between unpleasant and activation. So the 5 of you guys that have put unpleasant activation, that's correct, because frustration is on that range. Instead, the deactivation, a lot. Okay, I put a deactivation and unpleasant. In that way, the major, I would say, emotion that will be triggered will be the sadness, boredom, instead of frustration that is has a high psychological response to the situation. Perfect. Thanks again. I will remain on Mentimeter because I'm gonna ask you to think about an occasion, EDI-related occasion, in which you have experienced an emotion that can lie under unpleasant activation range. So unpleasant, we are speaking about negative emotion with activation range that is high arousal response. Let's try to think about maybe something that has happened lately. Public speaking, okay. Maybe some tension were arising during public speaking. I can totally see it. One-to-one, okay, also. Teams meeting, discrimination, okay. Discrimination maybe was the upset, the major, I would say, emotion felt. Meeting in general, okay, so maybe there's the tension, nervosism, stress, talk with an angry client, for sure, can be. No feedback from my, okay, changing, sharing a personal point of view, okay. Meeting conflict with colleagues. So of course, as we are seeing, they are all situation that can really trigger us with unpleasant emotion, with like high psychological response. So emotion that goes from, as we said, unpleasant to tension and nervosism. I'm kindly ask you to think instead to another situation that has triggered. Thanks a lot for sharing all of your experiences. Now let's try to think about a situation that has triggered a pleasant emotion with a deactivation range. So we are like going to the opposite of the previous situation. So we are speaking about a positive emotion with a low arousal intensity or low arousal psychological response. So let's think maybe something that really has let us experience something positive. So we are speaking about relaxation, calmness. Okay, completed project, compliments for work, for sure, promotion. Okay. Okay. Thanks from your coworker, team bonding also. So, of course, this kind of emotional are triggered when there's a good communication between colleagues and the work environment, and also like having direct confrontation with our colleague can be for sure can allow us to experience good emotion. No disruption all day. Okay. Thanks a lot. In order to conclude my speech, because I will, for sure, I'm excited to leave the floor to my colleague, Kate. Okay, so to conclude, we have seen how the Circumplex model can really help us identify and understand our emotional responses in any EDI-related context. We can be much more emotional aware because using this model, we can really reflect on our emotional state and the one of others, promoting greater empathy and emotional awareness. As we have said, this model is a practical tool that can lead us to better manage our emotion and foster in that way an inclusive, a positive work environment. So thanks to you a lot, guys. I'm willing to hear like your question later on, and maybe if you want to also write on chat some new insight that maybe you have gained from this speech. Thanks a lot.
Thanks so much, Livia, for your very insightful presentation. I'm going to hand it over now to Kate. Oh, you're on mute, Kate. Sorry.
Apologies. Good morning, everybody from Dublin. I feel like I'm on a Eurovision Song Contest here. Let me just share my screen. Can everyone see my screen now? Can someone give me a thumbs up or?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name's Kate, and I run a theatre here in Dublin called the Mill Theatre, and we're based in south of the city. For those who aren't familiar with the city, we opened in 2006, and I took over here the leadership here in 2016. So I've been running the organization for 8 years, and so around 4 years ago, we decided to invest and build a new strategy. And we explored what that would look like and how it would best be practically put together. And we decided to develop EDI practices and policies in the initial foundation of the strategy. So the mill is a 2-theatre space. We have a main theatre which holds 210 seats. And then where I am now is the studio, which is a 45-seater. And we, on a yearly annual basis, we engage with about 60,000 people. So people come in, as we all do, and buy a ticket for the theatre or a comedy gig or a music event or a spoken word event, or perhaps they come in to see our gallery. And they or in many other ways we engage with people, and that could be just merely that you work here, that you are an artist and you come in and you work here as an artist, writing, developing, painting, acting, singing, and so on. Or you are one of our many stakeholders that uses the space for a number of different reasons. And I'll go into them in a little bit. I think an organization like ourselves is a brilliant example of how to lead out on an organization with EDI principles. Because at the end of the day, what we do as a theatre, as an organization in the arts, we tell stories. And I think if I've learned anything around EDI in the last 5 years, is that EDI is all about telling the story. You are focusing on representation. You are focusing on empathy. And to me, those two words are everything that is EDI. We, as EDI leaders, need to constantly be asking ourselves, what does it feel like? Which is, what we've just learned from Livia. It's about feelings, and it's about individual experience, and it's about the expectation of those things, and how do we make a fairer, more equal, more diverse, and more inclusive space for us to live and be and work in. I'm aware that this is quite focused on business, but really, and how to lead a business organization or an operational model. But to be honest with you, it's brought into every aspect of our lives, and every space we go into now. I think our awareness of EDI practice and principle within that space is much more heightened than it would have been. I appreciate I'm speaking to many people from many different countries, and I think probably our journey in that area is different. It's always fascinating for me to hear how we as a nation here in Ireland compare to others, and vice versa. So let me just move on. So like I mentioned, we built a strategy 4 years ago, and we'll be finishing up in 2026. And really it's been transformative from an EDI perspective, because we built the fundamental strategy around EDI. And really, I mean, honestly, up to 5 years ago, I'm not sure I even could have told you what EDI stood for. I mean, that's how sort of non-committal I was. I came in here, believing that, you just build a business, you push on the business. It's all about work and not sleeping and all these things. And really, I've learned very valuably that leaning on your EDI principles, letting them become part of your day-to-day decision-making around every aspect of your organization is actually what makes your organization thrive and grow and become something you actually never thought it could be. So let me just have a breakdown maybe of the strategy. I mean, ultimately, our tagline here at the Mill is that we build community and we create opportunity through the EDI lens, which is really an obvious thing to say when it comes to EDI, because at the end of the day, it's about equality, it's about diversity, and it's about inclusion, and therefore building community. So if we have a community here in Dundrum, a very diverse community and a very large community, a growing community, from very young to very old, from very diverse to many different abilities, or so we constantly have to look at ways that we here in the organization meet the needs of our community. And certainly when we built this strategy 5 years ago, one of the big questions that came out of it was, well, who are the people that aren't coming in? Who are the people that don't come through our doors and engage with us as their arts community, arts organization in any way? And I mean, much to my disappointment, I guess, I did find that there were an awful lot of sectors of the community that weren't coming in. And I had to ask myself, why? Why was that? Why did they perhaps feel like they weren't welcome? Why did they feel alienated from what could be an arts experience for them? And how could I change that? How could we as a collective here in the Mill change that and open opportunity for them to come through our doors and engage with us in whatever way they felt that they would enjoy? Because at the end of the day, an art space is to be enjoyed. It's to, like I mentioned earlier, storytelling. Like, we as human beings we have a need to be story led. I mean, you know, theatre began back with the Greeks, where people would come and stories would be told by them by a Greek chorus in Athens. And we have this innate need as human beings to hear stories, to hear diverse stories, and to see ourselves reflected in arts experiences, whether that's in theatre or music or written word, or in any context such as that. So the building community was really important in terms of exploring EDI within the organization and also creating opportunity. So again, that comes back to access, it comes back to equality, and it comes back to empowerment, which of course is so important within EDI. You know, it's easy for me to say, oh yes, of course, all our EDI policies are being implemented, but that's not for me to say. That's for me to be told by the people we engage with. So I think it's really important not just to develop these policies and strategies, but implement them in a way that is collaborative, collective, community driven. So, for example, like creating opportunities is about creating opportunities for so many things. It could be for the professional artist. And again, when we come back to the word equality, what actually does that mean? Because there's always an argument within, we always discuss this within our strategy discussions around what is equality for the one person. Because if you think about it, equality is giving the same kind of experience or offering the same experience to two people. But perhaps those two people don't need or desire the same experience. So perhaps a better way of looking at it is equity. And I always love the example of what's the difference between equality and equity. And it's ultimately equality, I think, is giving everyone the same pair of shoes, but equity is giving everyone a pair of shoes that fits them. And when it comes to what we can offer, it's about creating an environment that can shape and contort to what the person needs. So maybe an artist doesn't necessarily need the same resources, the same time, the same money that another artist does. They might need a different form of help, of support, of contingency. And so it's up to a leader to sort of be able to understand that, to really be able to listen and to be able to manage levels of the equity role within that, and the same with our audience, which I will go on to speak about now. So when we built our strategy, this is just one of the pages of our strategy. You know, we really started at like grassroots level. What could we do? Like what really was our vision? How did that lead on to our mission? And who did we need to involve to make sure that happened? And really long term, what were our goals? What were our short-term goals? What were our medium-term goals? And what were our long-term goals? And like I've discussed, what was our vision? I mean, that's the real challenge is to, you have so many ideas, you have so many ambitions, you've so many expectations, and how do you reduce them into something that is concise and clear and core values going forward. And as the leader of the organization, I think probably every day I come back to ask myself on many decisions that I have to make on a daily basis, is this meeting our core need, our core values? Is this in line with the strategy that we've built? And that is just such a powerful way to lead an organization, because in all aspects you have your answer right there. Our values, which I think really meet all our EDI practices and policies, come in under creativity, respect, equality, community and collaboration, and of course fun, which is essential in an arts organization. So when we began this journey, I think we looked at 4 steps in particular. And I mean, first of all, like I said, my experience with EDI development in terms of strategy and policy was quite minimal. And certainly I inherited a staff here. So at the moment we have a staff of 20. And I think if you'd asked any one of them in an individual manner what their understanding of what EDI was, how they identified it within the organization, how they felt about it themselves, did they know what their rights, responsibilities were, I think we would have gotten very varied answers from everybody. Now there's a real collective understanding of what that is, because we've done so much professional development within our core group here. We talk constantly about what every decision making what all our decision makes are happening in the building, in the organization, and how they reflect our values and how they reflect our steps of strategy. So, like, for example, employment policy. How do we open up opportunities for employment in the organization? Are we analyzing the access of that? How do we reach out for offers of work? For example, I mean, just to give you an anecdotal story, technical theatre, for those who are kind of unfamiliar, would be traditionally very male dominated. So i.e., lighting, technical lighting, sound, stage management tend to be quite male dominated traditionally, very much changing now. So we actively would have explored and gone after, when we had an available role in our technical department, we would have really looked and seen, now not in an unfair bias point of view, but we would have explored female CVs and really wanted to make sure that in the interview process we were bringing in different representations and backgrounds of people who were looking for that job. So so that was one example of how we tried to diversify and basically bring in equality into our staff structure. Another example is where we began from the top down, which of course is everything. I mean, if you don't have representation at the top or at the beginning, then you're on a wicket to nothing. So our board of directors, there would have been like 10 directors who would have all been there for quite a long time, leading the organization. And as the CEO, I report to the board of directors. And so we identified that as an issue, and we ultimately went about renewing our board, but renewing our board under our EDI policy and practices. So we brought in a young voice representative into our board. We brought in an older person's voice representative onto our board. We brought in people from diverse backgrounds, diverse minority groups. And we brought in a professional artist to give that perspective. So in a way, you moved away from probably a board that had a lot of groupthink going on into a far more diverse, which raises its own great arguments in a directors in a board of directors. But I mean, they're really good, healthy discussions, because we're talking about representation, we're talking about equality, and we're talking about how to create a space that's more inclusive. So step 2, we really try to diversify the stories we tell on stage. And that is really important because, for example, King Lear is on in the theatre right now, the great Shakespeare tragedy. So like nothing fun here right now. It's all about death and killing each other. So, but again, you know, how do we tell the great classic stories? Can we shape them to meet the needs of a diverse audience? I mean, our audiences now are so diverse. People are living in Ireland from all over the world, and it's our job to represent them on our stage. We want to collaborate with diverse partners, so it can't just be the same people in the building all the time. We want people from different backgrounds, different abilities, different access needs. So, for example, we will, you know, bring in a theatre company that deals directly with neurodiverse issues in their work. We work with a company called Blue Diamond, who are predominantly young adults that present with autism. And then so it's constantly trying to find different places that we can meet the needs of different groups, and ultimately trying to make that an ecology and make it so that it's just natural. Involve and empower. We again, I suppose coming back to my point about not telling people what they need, but allowing them to tell me what they need. Like, empower the individual, let them be heard. And how do you do that in the strategy of EDI? I mean, at the end of the day, like I say, it comes back to the beginning and the foundation of that, and with regards to building policy and implementing them. So we have worked so hard to develop policy around access. I mean, to the point that, like, so every type of access, like digital access, for example, like, are we on our website making sure that everybody who uses our website is able to use it? But also, it's a big discussion point here at the moment in Ireland around the cash. So like lots of our older audience and our older public engagers, they only like to use cash. And I remember once there was a story around a cinema that I won't name, but an older man in his 80s went to see the new James Bond movie, and he got to the till or whatever, and he ordered his ticket, and they said, "Oh, sir, we only take card." And he was like, "But like, I don't have a card. I don't have a card." And they were like, kind of shrugged their shoulders and said, "Well, tough." And I remember we had a staff meeting the following week, and we all discussed it. And I just said, "Guys, let's never be that. Let's never be that, let's always be, inclusive. Let's always empower. Let's always make sure that we give people the empowerment to experience, and not exclude." So really quickly, because I'm aware of the time. When it comes to creating work, you've got to really, this is again, I think one of the really powerful ways we can show our EDI progress. So again, programming work that meets the need of so many different areas of our community. Casting. So for example, when we're casting now the productions we produce, we tend to blind cast a lot. So we're putting we're casting actors from different ethnic minority groups. We're casting people from different spatial areas. So like, it's not just Dublin centric. We try to engage. So therefore we supply access support. So we might pay for accommodation, we might pay for travel, just to be able to open up more opportunity for people who don't necessarily live in the area. We blind cast from gender. So we would perhaps put a female actor into a traditionally male role. And like I mentioned, access. So again, for example, if we have an actor in that is, might have dyslexia, we will make sure that that person has script really early, that has a particular kind of script that is easily engaged with by that person, basically meeting their needs, whatever we can. We will add on extra rehearsal time, because it would take a little bit longer to develop, possibly just in terms of grasping the work. And so we'll make sure that the whole company is stepping forward and meeting the needs of whatever individual needs the team have. Again, employment policy, you know, within the contracts of employment, we ensure that all those areas of safe to create, so, you know, making sure the environment that they work in is really safe, making sure there's dignity in the workplace and so on. Again, we're constantly reviewing, but we're fighting hard for all those needs. And again, like our people in the mill, we purposely every year run programs here in the mill to directly engage with people who we feel need our engagement. So and that opens up and continues to practice our EDI policies and practices. And we run a youth theatre that's free. So if you're of the age between 15 and 18, you can join our youth theatre, and you can join. There is no, we don't like do auditions. It's not necessarily cut off. As long as you want to engage with the arts and theatre, you can come in on a Saturday and engage with our youth theatre from 4 to 6 on a Saturday afternoon. We have a playground program, which is for mothers, artists, makers. So we identified that women who perhaps have had children and worked in the arts industry needed, when they, like, for caring responsibilities, needed to take a step back, and that can be really isolating and alienating. So we found a way of running a program for them, bringing artist mothers together, and then we would supply childcare. So you hear the sounds of babies crying in the theatre of a Tuesday morning, because all the mothers are working together, and then we've in a different space childcare facilities for them to come and have that facility. We've our elders program, which is for over 65s, for people, particularly during COVID, who didn't feel the confidence to come back into the space, and we found a way to make that happen. Our Shakespeare program, again, is for young people, very much for schools who might not necessarily have the availability to get into an arts engagement, or particularly for a lot of kids who don't feel that art is for them, or for theatre engagement is for them. We're really passionate about connecting, because it is for everybody, and finding that equality and equity for them. And then our Mavens program is a professional playwright program for mid-career female older writers, playwrights. This is a really powerful program, which we're really proud of. It's a 9-month residency, so we pay women to write, playwrights to write. And what happens with that, and I think it's a brilliant example of how a program can really meet so many different facets, is that really established female mid-career playwrights are writing work, but of course what they're writing about themes that affect them, which we don't often see on stage. I mean, stage roles are very dominated by men, and generally a lot of playwrights are men. So finding opportunities for female playwrights to get a step up the ladder in terms of development is really important to us. And of course, women write for women, and women write for older women. And so finding ways of getting more diverse, more representative roles onto the stage is really, really important for us. And I think, again, stems back into our EDI. So I had a little video to show you from our elders group, but I actually think maybe tomorrow I'm hitting time, so I'll leave the video go. And if anyone would like to see it, it's a really lovely example of our EDI with our elders program. But anyway, I'll leave it for now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kate. So we'll open the floor now to questions. If anybody has a question, if they'd just like to put it into the chat box, and we'll get to them.
Sorry, Tamara, that I saw that Sandra put some question ahead on the model. I don't know if, like, for you it's okay that I'm gonna explain. Okay.
Of course, go ahead.
Okay, thanks. So Sandra, you were asking about mainly was about the arousal. So our vertical line that crosses the valence of an emotion. So let's maybe like do a step back to see the difference between high arousal and low arousal emotions. When we're speaking about high arousal, we're speaking about emotions that are characterized by heightened physical and psychological activation, including, for example, heart rate, faster breathing, and often a state of alertness or excitement. this kind of emotion can make us more alert, so we can promote and provoke quick and sometimes impulsive decision. So, for example, in a positive valence, we said positive emotion like excitement, high arousal can boost creativity and motivation. In a negative valence and high arousal, we will have anxiety, for example, that might increase stress or trigger, of course, a fight-to-fight response. Instead, moving to the low arousal, so a low psychological response to a situation, we have emotions that are associated with a sense of calmness, relaxation, deactivation in a kind. And these emotions are marked by, of course, a lower psychological activation accompanied, yes, by slower breathing, steady heart rate, and a more measured approach to response. So this kind of state or emotion, crossing of emotion, can promote deliberate thinking, reflection, and also careful problem solving. So let's say that they create for us the urgency to act. So I hope that it has clarified a little bit more the arousal of our emotion.
I might ask Kate a question. What would you say is the most important emotional competence for a leader to have? Oh, just you're on mute, sorry.
Sorry. I have to learn not to keep doing that. I would say empathy, Tamara. Yeah, empathy. It's everything. Yeah, because, you know, empathy is feeling, I mean, what the person is, and if you have that, then you can have the sensitivity and the awareness to create an environment where everyone is respected and their needs are met. I mean, it's not always possible, but I think as long as you have a leader that's doing their best to do those things and listen and have patience, then I think that can only be good.
Thank you, Kate. I definitely agree. It's definitely the foundation for any good leader. Does anybody else have a question? If not, we might wrap it up there just because it's 12 o'clock now. So a huge thank you to everybody that joined and the speakers for their really interesting presentations. For anybody that joined late, this session is recorded, so it'll be up online soon. So thanks very much, everybody, and I wish you all a good day. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
Bye.
you. Bye.